Let's talk about traditional foodways. Traditional foodways are at the intersection of culture, identity, ecology, as well as traditional preparation methods for survival. And each one of these traditional foodways has evolved in a particular manner to ensure survival of a particular people in a particular region. So one way that traditional foodways are effective is that they can help with increasing immune function. Another way is that they can help with increasing the bioavailability of certain nutrients that are hard to find or scarce. Another way is that they can help with balancing essential minerals in your body. And lastly, the fourth way that traditional foodways are important is because they help people understand where the concentrated sources of certain rare and essential nutrients lie. So I'm going to walk you through an example of each one of these. First one is immune function. So one of the things that we've studied are African cultures and tribes. So in the Sudan, which is sort of in Central Africa, fermented food is extremely important. We have to remember that this was at a time where there was no refrigeration and that to preserve food meant survival. And so fermentation was one of these ways that you could prevent food from spoilage. And to enhance immune function, Sudanese tribes would ferment sorghum, which is a very widely available indigenous grain there. And fermented sorghum combined with donkey milk as a formula to give to infants to help boost their immune function and treat whooping cough. So that's one example. Another example is making nutrients highly bioavailable. So marissa is a fermented sorghum drink as well that is popular in Kenya and Egypt and other parts of Africa. Now, marissa is a long process of making, fermenting and boiling this sorghum over 5 days to really extract those nutrients and make them highly bioavailable and digestible. Now, it's considered a sacred food because it is given to mothers when they are first breastfeeding to help improve the quality of their milk, but it's also given to infants to help increase their vitality and their immune systems. So again, we see this example of highly bioavailable foods being given as medicinal foods. The next example that I want to talk to you about is about how essential minerals and nutrients were balanced. So we're going to go all the way to India, to the coastal region called Gujarat. And Gujarat is primarily in a desert, but it's a coastal desert, so it's kind of an interesting place where the water has a high amount of salt, so it's very salinated water. Now, the problem with salinated water in a desert, you can imagine, is that you're going to die of dehydration very quickly. You're not going to last. So how are we going to survive this climate? Well, an amazing technology is making sugar. Now, sugar we know has had a lot of controversy around it in the nutrition field, but we're going to look at sugar as an example of an early survival food here. What these people would do is take sugar, cane juice, crystallize it to actually make sugar, the sugar crystals that we know today, and then add that to their food with the salty water in order to make this amazing electrolyte food, right? We all know about electrolytes, how we need to balance the glucose in our bodies with the sodium in our bodies to maximize the absorption of both, because that's what drives water into our system. A little bit of biochemistry for you. However, this is something that you, again, have to stop and say, how do these people know how to do that? The point is that everywhere we look on Earth, there is a solution, not just for human survival, but for nutrition and optimizing health. And I'm going to take us to the last example, which is one of the climates that we often perceive as being the harshest, is the Arctic. And the Arctic Inuit people have been living there since also the beginning of time, right? And one of the things we know is that when we look at evidence, of teeth and dentition, as well as bone remains, we see that there was no evidence of scurvy whatsoever in the Inuit population. And then the answer, or the question is, well, why? Why was there no scurvy? Because there aren't any fruits and vegetables abundantly growing like we would see in the tropics or in temperate climates. And the answer is that when the Inuit would hunt animals, such as, let's say, moose, the first thing that they would do is remove the tissue that sits right above the kidneys on the adrenal glands. And this is where you find a very rare form of fat-soluble vitamin C. That's right, not water-soluble, but fat-soluble vitamin C. That's one of these rare vitamins that is difficult to get in this environment. So they would take apart the adrenal gland, chop it up, and divide it amongst all the clan people so that everybody was able to get their dose of vitamin C in a highly bioavailable form. And lastly, they did the same thing with the retina. So the retina is the tissue that is at the back of the eye. It's involved in vision, both day vision and night vision, and it requires a high amount of vitamin A. It has to be a fat-soluble, bioavailable form. And that's exactly what the Inuit people did. They would go in, take out that retina, divide up the fatty tissue, and consume it right away in order to promote and protect their eye health. So this is how we see traditional foodways were one and the same when it came to food and medicine.